Hello everyone and welcome back to another review on my channel, this time for an indie racing game developed by Brazilian studio Aquarius. And that game is Horizon Chase Turbo, a game that was released back in 2018, and it was either available on day one or perhaps a couple of months later after release for the PlayStation 4 as part of the PlayStation Plus, so it was technically like an included game with the service. So naturally I remember downloading the game and playing the first few tracks, but then ended up being sidetracked even though I was enjoying the game. So fast forward to present time, and ever since I got the Steam Deck recently, I was browsing for for the list of verified games on my Steam library that I could try on the Steam Deck, and this game popped up on that list. So I figured this could be a fun game to play in between longer games, do a race or two in between other games to add a little bit more variety in terms of my gaming experience. So Horizon Chase Turbo plays homage to the classic arcade racing games with a fixed from behind view, meaning the game is not fully 3D and forces the player to always face forward, and also limiting the movements on screen laterally only. More specifically, this game pays homage to games like Outrun, but if you want to be more specific, the Top Gear games for the Super Nintendo, which I have a lot of fun memories playing those games. Graphically, the game looks good for what it's trying to achieve. We have to keep in mind this is an indie game with an indie budget, obviously. The game uses 3D models but provides a cartoony type of skin to the cars and the environments, providing a very unique look with retro vibes yet modern in its presentation. And this is because the game can run beautifully at 60 frames per second and has no issues playing this with that type of performance on the Steam Deck, by the way. It's just a matter of adjusting the sliders and setting the game to 60 frames per second, and the game runs extremely well. The game also makes use of a very colorful palette with vivid colors that vary depending on the region you're racing around the world. There are races, for example, in California, they're sunny, palm trees and whatnot, different areas of Europe and all that we'll get to talk later in the gameplay section. But there's also a hint of modernized Top Gear in the art direction of the game, which is appreciated by old-timers like me that have played those Top Gear games in the past, for the Super Nintendo. Now, in terms of the soundtrack and sound effects, the game is actually surprisingly good, especially in the soundtrack department, with some fast tempo music that is well suited for the nature of the game. So props to the developers and I guess the music composer or director of the game for hitting the nail with the soundtrack specifically regarding the sound department. And finally, gameplay wise, I already gave a brief rundown on the driving mechanics, saying that this game resembles older arcade racing games that limit your movement to only horizontal movements on the screen. So you can't turn around and drive against traffic, or you can't really back up if you want to. So the key here is, since you're always facing forward, is to know how to read the track map that you have available and to know what turns are coming up. That's key because the sense of speed sometimes does not give enough reaction time to make the turns. And there are some tracks that have turn after turn, they change in direction and so forth, that are really tricky. So having a good knowledge of the track and looking at the track map are always helpful in this game. I personally never used the brakes in this game, but I did find myself letting go of the gas for hard turns and making passing maneuvers as well. You just left off the gas. By doing that, you gain a little bit more better handling, if you will. But that's about it in terms of controlling the car. If you go off track, you will lose speed, obviously, like if you're driving on grass or dirt. And if you hit a roadside objects, your car will crash and flip, making you lose some precious seconds. So the key is to stay on track, which is goes without saying, it's pretty obvious. But it's not as easy as it sounds, since the AI race cars are always there, and are truly bothersome and act like huge obstacles throughout the course of the game. The AI is a little bit infuriating. They you always start at the last position in every race, so it's always a challenge to weave through, especially the AI that's at the back of the pack. It's almost like they have a treaty with the cars that lead the pack, because they're trying to block your way as you're passing cars on there. So other than that, you also get 3 nitro boosts per race that you can use, and they can be very helpful on straightaways to gain massive speeds in a short segment, and use that to your advantage to pass other cars in the races. Certain tracks have nitro bottles scattered that you can collect, so technically you can use more than 3 boosts depending on the track you play at. The highlight of the game modes, and I guess the principle or the main way to play this game, is the World Tour mode, which takes the player around the world, starting in California and then moving to other countries in South America like Brazil and Chile, and then moving to Europe, Greece, South Africa, etc. You visit every continent, a lot of countries, and and I think there are about 12 countries in total, and each country has 9 to 12 tracks. So a lot of variety, a lot of different tracks in this game, and each country has what it's called an upgrade race, which is key to win in every country, because you get an upgrade. You get to upgrade a part of your car to improve either the speed, the acceleration, the turning, the fuel consumption, or the nitro usage. For the regular tracks, you get tokens the better you perform, including grabbing collectibles such as coins during the races. But yeah, the game somewhat limits your progress based on the number of tokens you have. So the better you perform, the more tokens you get. And in order to open the next country or other unlockables in World Tour mode, you need to have a minimum number of token requirements. One advice for me is to try and position as best as you can, obviously, in each race. But the key is to win the upgrade races at each country, and then what you can do is go back and repeat tracks to get more points and make things easier with your upgraded car, obviously. This may sound time consuming, and yeah, it sort of is actually, but the reality here is that if you want to beat the World Tour mode, you will have to spend between 10 to 15 hours in that game mode alone, which it sounds a lot for an indie racing game, but that's good in terms of you're getting a bang for your buck, if you will. So if you're expecting a quick racing game to beat, this is not the one. I call it a little bit of a Metroidvania racing game, in the sense that you need to go back to earlier countries and tracks with your newer upgrades in order to perform better and score more points. So there's a lot of quote-unquote backtracking, if you will, throughout the World Tour mode in the game. And speaking of the great variety in terms of tracks, the game also has a huge selection of cars that are unlocked throughout gaining tokens and performing certain challenges that I believe there are over 20 cars, ranging from exotic sports cars like Ferraris and Porsches and Lambos, all the way to normal cars, ranging from luxury Audis and Mercedes-Benz, to more common cars, they have a Fiat 500, for example, and even some older retro cars 80s, Toyota Celicas and things like that. And also all the way to crazy cars like antique ones and school buses and things like that. So it is important to note that the game does not have licenses to use real car brand or names and logos, but you can tell what they are based on the shape and the form of the car. So if you're a car enthusiast, I think you will recognize what you're driving right away. The game also features an arcade/Grand Prix mode that is just pure racing on a point-based system, kind of like the Mario Kart Cups. DLC is also interesting for this game. I believe there's one free DLC available for the game, but the one that caught my attention and I ended up buying that DLC on sale was the Ayrton Senna Tribute DLC mode or package. Now, I guess since the developers are mostly from Brazil, they wanted to pay homage to the great Brazilian legend Ayrton Senna, which was a Formula One driver, perhaps the best in history. He was a Formula One driver in the 80s and 90s, and the Senna DLC takes the player through his progression in his career from his early day at Lotus all the way to his stardom with the McLaren Honda team, where he won 3 world championships. The cool thing about the DLC, the Ayrton Senna DLC, is that you get to drive the Formula One cars, and they handle a little bit different, and they even have like an onboard camera where you can see, you know, the steering wheel and stuff. So pretty cool if you're into Formula One, racing, if you will. All in all, I think Horizon Chase Turbo is a very solid indie racing game that's worth checking out. The game is available for a multitude of systems and provides plenty of gameplay time and variety for being a racing game. So if you are able to get this game and are interested in it, I'd say pull the trigger and just get it. So yeah, that's it for now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.